Hi everyone. I recently received an Omega D2 large format enlarger from a very kind stranger online. And it came with this excellent lens. If I can get it close up here, it is a Wollensak 135mm lens for enlarging 4x5s. It's actually a pretty nice lens from what I've heard. I've cleaned up the front and rear elements a little bit. It's got a little coating damage, but otherwise it's not too bad. But what I'd really like to show off in this video is my process of getting into here. Just about everything on this lens is completely seized up. So after this introduction, I'm going to do little clips of me cutting into this lens. Well, not cutting in, but getting into the lens to clean it up, and I'll do a voiceover for whatever clips I end up getting. But I would love to get this lens into service, and I have all the other components for the enlarger in place. So I'd be essentially ready to do large format 4x5s as soon as I get this lens fully working. Like I said, the aperture does not currently work, so I really need to get in there and clean it up. So I'm going to cut now to the process of restoring this, and you'll hear me doing the voiceover for that section.
I started off by removing the rear lens element, which ended up being the easiest step of this whole repair. Just about everything else in the lens was really seized together, so I took a bit of 3-in-1 oil and applied it generously to the seams, between moving parts, and on parts that needed to be removed. I used a toothpick so I could apply the oil with precision, and I was happy to see that the oil was being drawn into all of the seams. While allowing the oil to penetrate overnight, I in the meantime cleaned up some of the old adhesive remnants on the rear element and cleaned the glass as well. The next morning, I successfully used a strap wrench to loosen the front element, which had until now been completely stuck in place. The aperture control came loose pretty easily after the oil treatment. The iris was surprisingly in very good shape, and because of that I opted not to disassemble it during this repair. The action of the iris was pretty smooth, and there didn't appear to be an excess of oil or debris on it, so I gently cleaned it with a bit of solvent on a Q-tip and just set it aside so I could work on some of the other components. Removing the front element from its housing was a little more tricky. The name ring was difficult to remove since the threads were filled with grime, but with some effort it came out, allowing access to the front element. The lettering in the name ring was in rough shape, so I decided that I would scrape out the white lacquer and redo it myself. I used a white lacquer stick to fill in the letters and a paper towel to wipe away the excess. The result looked pretty great, and any small amounts of remaining lacquer were pretty easily removed with a Q-tip and a tiny bit of solvent. Much of the exterior nickel plating was pretty heavily corroded. I used Brasso and a polishing wheel with my Dremel to remove a lot of this surface corrosion and to smooth out the nickel plating. I taped over the glass to protect it from the polishing compound, but I was pleasantly surprised that a lot of the nickel came out looking pretty shiny. I didn't end up removing it entirely in the process of polishing it. I used Flit's chemical polisher to remove the damaged coating from the front element. Since this is an enlarging lens, the negative effects of removing a coating won't be as obvious in practice as with a lens that's used in daylight. The coating came off really easily, and I can see that the only other damage present on the front element is some minor scratches. At this point, I gave the rear element a quick clean both on the metal housing as well as the glass surfaces. The rear element was overall in very good shape. I applied some lithium grease to the aperture threads and reinstalled the ring. A small set screw holds the unit together and actuates the iris. The action is very smooth now. I reinstalled the front element, followed by the name ring. The same goes for the rear element, with installation being the reverse of removal. Both the front and the back went in without any issue. I put the lens back onto the enlarger, and I'm happy to see that a frame is projecting well. I'll take some time soon to make a few prints. There are some other parts of this enlarger that need a little bit of cleaning before I can do that, but I hope to at some point in the future make a follow-up video to show some of those prints that I'm able to make with this lens. To wrap things up, I want to show a before and after photo of this lens. I think the difference is quite striking. I'm really happy with the result, and I think this lens will work quite well both for large 4x5 negatives and occasionally for 6x7 negatives, which I would also like to be able to use this enlarger for. Thanks all in any case for watching, and see you next time on my next video.